we've only been working less than a month, by the way, Hike. So we
Yeah,
secured this
minimum.
role, yeah, probably like 3 weeks. We started applying, right? Within
Yeah,
the fourth week, I got the job, and I requested between, let's say, between 15 to 20% extra to the advertised salary range. I was expecting to get something along the line of extra 10%. So we come all the way a half in between.
hmm
But luckily, they didn't offer me the 10% or the 15%. They just went all the way up to the 20%. I was even willing to push back a little bit on the salary and accept a lower salary for the possibility of learning. But yeah, ended up getting the maximum more than I expected. And also the opportunity to learn and grow within the company. I was expecting a lot of competition, right? Because the market is saturated. I had this impression that the competition and the market is going to be tough. But no, it wasn't the case. They were actually struggling to find good candidates. And they were screaming over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews. And they just couldn't believe that they found a very good candidate that suited the requirement. And they were very welcoming and willing to close the deal as fast as possible, which is just states that if you really sharpen your skill set, if you are in a very good place technically, you will never find it difficult to get a job. We over prepared, I guess, for the requirements
Yeah.
because yeah, the guy when I asked him about what I know about security, I gave him a lot of information about security and web security and some examples. The guy was super impressed because I remember the guy once we completed the first half of the second technical interview was conversational. He told me that I'm going to ask you some technical question about JavaScript and React, and I'm sure you will answer all of them, but it's just a procedure that I have to follow.
I'm here with my client, Basil, who landed a new developer role by passing all the interview stages and pretty well, and just got an offer yesterday. So we'll just do a quick interview and talk about how he did it. So congrats again, Basil. And maybe we can start from the very beginning, like what happened in your career? Yeah, what happened in your career that made you look for another job hunt, and where were you basically before joining the program?
So before joining the program, I was primarily working at the front end side of things. So primarily working as a front end developer and doing server side stuff here and there, but not as basically working as a full stack basically. And I've reached a point in my career where I was looking into transitioning my skill sets into the server side as well, and gaining knowledge in the server side, specifically with all the advancement in AIs and companies changing their requirements and the way they view development. And I had this idea, and I initially had this idea of becoming super 10x like engineer at the front end. But then I realized it would be better if I become, let's say, an 8 out of 10 in both the sides of the stack, the front end and on the back end. And I was counterplaying the idea for a while in my mind and figuring out basically what to do it and how to do it. And luckily, I was basically delaying the implementation and start actually taking actions, but the idea was always in my mind until yeah, my company basically they laid off a couple of people and I was one of the people that got affected. And this is basically was a trigger for me to basically strategizing a new plan before I rejoin the market. And this is where I started looking for some support when it comes to basically the transitioning between only working in the front end side of things, but also filling the gaps in my front end skill sets to basically achieve more seniority and transition into the server side. So my plan was, okay, let me have a reflect on my career and figure out what are the technical gaps that I have, fulfill those gaps at the front end, fast track my process into getting a newer job, and then start expanding my knowledge into the server side. And I was, yeah, quite lucky to come across you through a friend of mine who suggested your program. Very good suggestion, to be honest. And yeah, we ended up working together.
Yeah, that's great. And after the layoff, what did you think? Like, were you expecting to get hired as fast, or maybe you expect it to take it like longer than it took right now?
Yeah, to be honest, I was expecting it to take way longer than expected, due to all the fluffs on the internet and the AI and companies not needing developers. And I figured out it would most likely be more challenging compared to back in the days. But to be honest, no, it wasn't the case at all. Yeah, not at all.
And transitioning to like backend skills as well, other than the front end, did it help in any ways during the interviews?
Yes. Well, what I've seen that the companies basically they really appreciate people that they can basically jump on the stack, even though if you're not even working as a full competent full stack developer, they really prefer if you have the ability from time to time to jump on the other side of the stack and do stuff on the server side. Because I remember the tech lead told me it's very rare that we hire someone who's just primarily doing front-end related stuff. Usually it's 70-30, 80-20. And this is how we decide basically, um, or this is how most of our developer works. And I think this is the case even in my previous roles. There are always some favorism towards developers that can jump on the server side and do basically like architecture decisions, something like super complicated, but let's say expanding the routing system or adding some authentication logic of validation logic, doing something above being a trivial task, basically. Yeah, medium-sized task at the server side, specifically when um, the backend developer, let's say, are not allowed. And this is way more important specifically for small and medium-sized companies. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like pure front end or pure back end positions are very rare, right? Especially nowadays, because even if it's listed as front end, you will see in the requirements some Node.js, some Docker, or if it's like pure back end, you will see some React, some Vue.js, some front end framework there.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, and mainly because probably like most of the companies are looking for people who can work on end-to-end features. So if there is some small change required in the backend, so that you don't wait for backend developers to implement it and you can do it yourself.
Yeah, and it becomes there would be one single point of communication. Just I remember this is what we discussed during one of our call. This is
Yeah,
what I've stated during the interview. Yeah, and they turned out to like the idea. Yeah, just
yeah, great.
simplify stuff. Mhm.
Now specifically about these interviews that you passed, how were they? How many stages were these interviews? And yeah, how did you feel going through them?
So those interview, I mean, let's focus here more on the feeling, basically side of things. Even though we are developing very technical, we don't like to talk about the feeling. But I emphasize this because usually confidence play a big role during the interview process. And when you know that you like some certain topics and you don't know them, you can't be confident. You can't fake the confidence because you know you lack basic understanding of things.
Mhm.
And just because I remember me and you, we took one step back and we've created this roadmap because I came with a semi-complete plan of where I think I lack. And based on you, we finalized this plan in terms of the front end. And because we spend the time basically working on those gaps or working on those fundamentals, I felt very confident going through the interview and talking about stuff, right?
Mhm.
And this is played a big role during the interview process because it's just sometimes it's part of it is technical, part of it is a mental game. How comfortable you are, how do you basically approach yourself? I was very confident because yeah, of course, I don't know everything. Even seniors don't know everything, but I know that most of the things that might come across me in the interview, I'll be able to talk about them, talk about maybe experiences that are related to what they're talking without giving like any specific example right now for the interview. I like to make things more generic. Um, this is from the feeling side of things and how it's related to confidence. In terms of the interview process themselves, there were three stages interview. The first one was uh, just to get a better understanding of what I've been doing so far, the amount of the magnitude or the complexity of the features that I've worked on, and if I did touch basically any stuff on the server side. So it was very clear that the guy was interested in knowing if I was only doing front-end related stuff and the complexity of those tasks. And also he was interested in knowing if I have a good understanding of the front-end kind of like, let's say the whole front-end pipeline, starting from the setting up a project, the tooling, all the way up to deployment, because we started asking about beats, how to set up React apps, different approaches, then building features, testing, and then deployment and CI/CD pipelines. And because we covered all of these things in the course, I was very confident to take him through a journey and then take in each role and emphasize a specific part of those, let's say, side of setting up or building a front-end web application. And he was very impressed because I was able to show experience within the whole, let's say, the whole side of the front end, basically, pipeline, or how to basically work on the whole front end, basically, tooling system. The second interview was a technical interview. It was quite unique because it was a conversational interview. It was split into two sections. The first section was talking about asking me technical questions, and those technical questions, even though they're not code related, but they could easily distinguish, you could easily distinguish between developers that they understand the fundamentals and developers that don't understand the fundamentals, which is more about how to better, let's say, manage your data in React application, state management or data management within your front-end application, the testing, performance optimization, reducing your bundle size, third-party libraries, securities, and what comes and all the risks that comes with it. And then the second part of the interview was mainly a technical question when it comes to like Java, JavaScript, and React, which wasn't that difficult, to be honest. What else as well? Yeah, so it was a conversational technical interview. I did come across a lot of live coding assessment, which I think if you are really good with the syntax, they might be easier than this one, because this one will really test your understanding of things like concepts like authentication, authorization, CI/CD pipeline, how to think about basically managing your data within a React application, different way of managing the data. When would you go from storing the data locally in a component and all the way up to moving this data to a global store? What would you sacrifice by doing this? So it shows how much technical depth you have basically in the front end. And what else as well? Yeah, and the final interview was basically culture fit interview and getting to know the CTO and speak about my experiences and if I'm a good culture fit, which wasn't that difficult, because I mean we had a good discussion about what to do, what are the things to basically focus on displaying during those interviews. And yeah, it went very well. It was very nice, and mostly spoke about what they do for fun, the culture, and cross communication between team members and what they like to have for lunch.
Yeah, pizzas and whatever corporate. Yeah, cool. And the stuff that we prepared like before interviews, like the CI/CD pipelines, like the security aspects of it, did it come handy during those interviews?
Yeah, absolutely. When it came to the CI and the CD pipeline, this is something the guy was very happy to hear me talking about it during the first stage interview, because again, most of the developers, they focus on building features, fixing bugs, and other, let's say, integrating other third libraries. And there is a lot of lack of when it comes to setting a project from scratch, all the way up to the tooling side of things, which is basically the CI/CD pipeline and the deployment. And because I managed to explain stuff in details and how we use the decision docs to make decisions and how we perform those decisions within the company. So I had a very systematic way of explaining stuff. The guy was impressed. He was very impressed, basically, about how we approach stuff. And what was the second part? The security, yeah. The security, yeah, we over prepared, I guess, for the requirements
Yeah.
because yeah, the guy when I asked him about what I know about security, I gave him a lot of information about security and what security and some examples, and he said, yeah, that's basically the only thing we have is we have a third party company that runs basically our services and then notify us with any security basically concerns. But what you basically have but you have a really good and solid understanding of front end security, let's say, concerns and concepts, which again shows technical and good technical understanding and awareness. Even though I stated very clearly I didn't implement anything that has to do with security, but I have a good sense of the concepts and what they mean and why, and just keep them in my mind during development time. It was
Yeah.
very helpful, and yeah, you did a great job because I remember you emailed me the doc 2 a.m. in the morning. I was extremely shocked. So yeah, it was very nice of you to yeah, pull it over within less than 24 hours. So
Yeah.
that's
It was
something a lot
actually
of
like
people
I were
yeah
about to
wouldn't
go
do.
to sleep, and then I remember that I promised to send you a doc, but I didn't. So I just opened up and quickly sent it over after the night.
Yeah, it was yeah, thanks for that. It was very yeah, nice of you, and yeah, something you wouldn't find it very often because yeah, the continuous support and the quick basically response, and yeah, having you available specifically when there's something critical or during interviews, found it extremely helpful.
That's great. And this decision-making framework, it usually impresses interviewers. Like as far as I also tried on my interviews, like whenever you are able to mention about this and how do you usually come up with decisions, that's one thing that they are looking for, especially for when you get to senior positions, because they want to see your thinking process and not only how you code and how you ship features.
Yeah, and it shows that you have a systematic way of doing stuff, which I think they care about the most. They're most likely there might be other ways of doing stuff, other way to approach the same issue, but at least if you have one good example of how you approach stuff, that's a good indicator that you've been doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
also you have a good understanding of how to do it. So you don't have to basically struggle to teach you how to make those decisions, which is a
yeah,
bit of overkill, to be honest, even for a front end, I think like a high mid-level front end roles. So that's why the guy was super impressed because I remember the guy once we completed the first half of the second technical interview was conversational. He told me that I'm going to ask you some technical question about JavaScript and everything, and I'm sure you will answer all of them, but it's just a procedure that I have to follow.
yeah.
So the guy knew exactly where I stand in terms of my technical depth, which was, yeah, super nice.
He probably was convinced already at that point. And
Yeah,
about
that's
the
why.
last round, it was with CTO, right? You said.
Yeah,
And
it was
how
the
did it go? You said there was also some salary negotiations involved. You don't have to tell like an exact number, but did it go as planned and as you wished?
So yeah, I had the final interview with the company, and they extended an instant verbal offer
Hmm.
after their final interview, which was extremely nice of them. And I think not just them being nice, I think I did very well during the interview. I communicated effectively, and so what they were willing to pay a specific, let's say, range of salary between X and Y. And in my head, I was looking for probably 15% more of that. And I requested between, let's say, between 15 to 20% extra to the advertised salary range.
Hmm.
And they said, okay, no worries. We will have to speak to the financial team and HR, and then we will get back to you. And they got back to me the day after. And I was expecting to basically to get, let's say, if they were giving a specific range X between X and Y, and I've asked for, let's say, 15% more, I was expecting to get something along the line of extra 10%. So we come all the way a half in between.
Hmm.
But luckily, they didn't offer me the 10% or the 15%. They just went all the way up to the 20%. And it was, yeah, I was very kind of like, I was very surprised, happy, and shocked. And it's a good indicator that this is a very good company because they value my experience, they value my expertise, and they're willing to pay the maximum amount not to, yeah, to lose me. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That the pay part is good and is what you expected. And what about the tech stack part and like career growth wise? Do you see this as a good opportunity to learn more things in this new role?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because I think during our program, because of the short giving time, we've only been working there less than a month, by the way, Hike. So we
Yeah,
secured
in a
this
month.
role, yeah, probably like 3 weeks. We started applying, right? Within
Yeah.
the fourth week, I got the job. So taking into account this very small part of time, because we were primarily focused on the front end. So basically, what I've discussed earlier, filling the gaps. Um, what I like about this company is that they're using most up-to-date technologies at the front end. And because the CTO is quite technical, so he has a very good understanding of investing time into actually the tooling and not accumulating a lot of technical debt in the future. And I think by joining this company, I will have the time to mature more in the front end and take it to the seniority level. But also, they are very welcoming and they are highly motivating the developer to start exploring the server side, which is basically matches what I'm looking for career-wise. Even in the backend service on the backend side of things, they're not using a monolithic systems at the backend, but they're using microservices, which is basically up to one of the best way of designing backend application. And it's very valuable nowadays, and it's used in a lot of companies, and it will open doors for me in the future to expand my knowledge within the server side, but also the microservice side of things. And yeah, take it from there. Very valuable. It's a very valuable opportunity in terms of the learning. That's why I was even willing to push back a little bit on the salary and accept a lower salary for the possibility of learning. But yeah, ended up getting the maximum more than I expected. And also the opportunity to learn and grow within the company. So yeah,
One more thing we learned, I think, during
absolutely.
this is you said there were some hundreds of applicants for this role, right? But what company said to you? They said they were struggling to find a person, right?
Yeah. So in my head, I was thinking, why were they basically moving a little bit fast during the interview process? And yeah, one of the reasons in my head it was because I was doing very well during these interviews, but I was expecting a lot of competition, right? Because the market is saturated. It's a lot of people not on that looking for jobs, specifically front end, right, roles. And yeah, I had this impression that the competition and the market is going to be tough. But no, it wasn't the case. And I remember because I built a very good report with the company and the senior software engineer over there. And he stated clearly that they were actually struggling to find good candidates. And they were screaming over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of interviews. And they cannot, they couldn't, they just couldn't believe that they found a very good candidate that suits the requirement. And they were very welcoming and willing to close the deal as fast as possible because 95% of all the applicants or all the people that apply for the jobs are not well qualified. And this is creating process. It takes a tremendous amount of work and energy from their side. And I even checked their LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, they posted this role 1 month and a half ago, and there were over 100 people applying for this role. And this over 100, usually LinkedIn, it means it could be 500, could be 600, could be 1,000. Who knows, right? Just to not discourage people, LinkedIn usually just write over 100. They don't state the exact numbers as
Yeah.
previously. And I was thinking, yeah, it's a very quite interesting point because you look at the market, all the fluffs online, and when you look at the picture from the company's point of view, they're struggling to find good candidates, competent candidates. And once they find one, they rush the process to get basically to close the deal, which is just states that if you really sharpen your skill set, if you are in a very good place technically, you will never find it difficult to get a job.
Yeah,
And it would be a
exactly.
very simple, process.
Yeah, and that's
And
about
you could
like very.
even negotiate it because usually within this market, usually people say you would be even lucky to get a job. I was able to actually negotiate higher than the advertised range and push further that compared to that range.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a very common misunderstanding, right? Like most developers, especially in mid levels, they think companies are posting jobs and they are just posting those without any end goal. So like they are not looking for the emails that are coming or for the resumes that people are sending. But actually, yeah, the competition is big, but it's not strong. Like the good candidates are less than 1% who apply for the role, and most of it they get disqualified in the automation process. Some of them get disqualified after HR looks at their resumes, and only a few percentage passes, and out of those, companies struggling to find competent developers, right? So if you have the skills, if you're competent developer, you shouldn't struggle to find a new job anytime. Doesn't matter. Even nowadays, even like before when the market was even in a bad, like worse crash.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I have a very short example. When I was at my previous role, we were looking for another front-end developer, and we advertised on LinkedIn just to avoid the recruitment fees, and we ended up receiving over 300 applications.
Mm-hmm.
And we screened through, not me, but the lead software engineer ended up screening through all of these CVs, ended up liking none. And we had to pay for a recruitment agency to provide it with some more tailored CV towards our need. And we ended up finding a couple of them, right? And I think we ended up finding only three possible candidates.
Mm-hmm.
And we had this favor candidate and two other candidates. And the favor candidates, we were late by a couple of days, and then we heard he was off the market.
Mm-hmm.
Just in a couple of days, he was off the market, and then we end up hiring the second favorite candidate.
Yeah.
And this shows that, okay, and this is the second example that I came across. This shows that again, if you're competent and you have all these good skill sets, and you have a good, the issue is you don't know what you don't know, right? So when you are working with courses, you're building tutorials and you're building very simplistic project, you don't understand the complexity and you don't understand what the market is actually looking for. So you would have this false sense of achievement in terms of, I've done all of this work, so I should be rewarded right now. But in reality, it might be that you have to put three times of this work, plus learning a little bit of other things to be actually ready to start looking for a job. And this is where, the program actually would help because you have another person that could actually set realistic expectations of what the market is looking for, how to stand out in the market, and how to be basically job ready. And it shows that again, markets is hungry for good candidates. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, if like watching these tutorials only were enough, then you would cram as many tutorials as you can, right? You would put like watch a Docker course, put Docker in your resume, then watch a CI/CD course, put CI/CD on your resume. But uh, that doesn't help during the interview because they will see like you don't have any real
Depth.
world experience to talk about. You just know the concepts.
Yeah, yeah. You don't have depth in your knowledge, basically.
In our companies, I've also been doing like interviews, and I know how it is. Like companies paying money, right, to find candidates, and then yeah, they are struggling. Probably like they cannot find good candidates. We were receiving some senior level developer. We opened senior level developer position, and then people who were applying, they were not even a strong mid. Like they didn't know very basic stuff, and they were applying for senior roles, and their resume says like 7 years of experience or 10 years of experience, but the guys didn't know anything. So yeah, that's how saturated the market is, but it doesn't mean that the competition is strong. You are competing with these guys who are like 10 years of developers, but they probably know like 20 or 30% of what you know.
Yeah, I remember in my second previous experience, we've interviewed for a senior developer role. I didn't contribute in the interview, but then the other senior guy, he told me the two people that we interviewed are low mid-levels. And I was quite shocked and surprised. How
Yeah,
could they, yeah, like they didn't like they know basic stuff again.
yeah.
And it's shocking, you know, it's shocking. Yeah.
And lastly, few questions about the program. So first thing, what was your favorite part of the program? Like not was you're still going through the program, but what's the one thing you learned till this point? The best thing.
I like the high customizability because again, when I first joined the program, I kind of had a brief idea of what I lack and what I would like to focus on and improve. And I really appreciated the fact that you've tailored the tasks and the stuff that I will be working on towards actually working on the thing that I would like to improve first before I just start contributing to the mega project. And I really appreciated basically how we coordinated the fact that, okay, let's take a step back when it's come to let's learn, for an example, concept A, do a course with it. And sometime I will share with you the curriculum of the course and say, okay, hi, did I learn this? Should I learn this? Is this necessary? And then you will give me some feedback. And as soon as I finish learning the course and all the necessary, let's say, theory and fundamentals, then we move into the implementation details, which is, let's say, something in our example, we're using the design doc, and then finally the implementation details of it. And yeah, this was very, very helpful to me. And I really liked it because in most, let's say, cases you come across as like there is a roadmap or a plan, and you have to follow this plan. And in order to hit the key knowledge gaps that you have, you might have to go through a lot of stuff that you're not necessarily interested in, or you're necessarily interested in improving. And the second thing is setting up realistic goals. Because I remember when I first joined, I had this idea where, okay, Hike, let's do all the full stack stuff and apply for full stack developer roles, right? And you told me it might be a little bit challenging and realistic to just finish off all the full stack stuff while you're unemployed. So let's focus is on filling the front end gaps, right? Get you back to the market so you have some cash flow in, and then transition into if we find that opportunity that will help you with that, that's great. If not, anyway, we're gonna be working parallel with that and doing all the backend related stuff. So this customizability super helpful. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's better to have some job and work on your skills on your weak areas than just have no job for few months and then wait until you land the next one. So you can like now that you have the role, you can still work on the backend skills and we'll work on it together. And the role itself will also help you to like expand your knowledge there.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And also, what's something you didn't know about before joining the program that you learned and you think it's valuable?
Uh, I would probably say making decisions and how to approach making front end, let's say, or architecture decisions, even though we didn't do a lot of them, but we at least we discussed frameworks and how to approach them. We've done an example, and then I received multiple feedbacks when it comes to in our example, which was the selection of the CI/CD pipeline tooling, how to approach it, how to think about the technical requirements, and how to prepare the technical doc, and then this doc got reviewed by you. And then the second stage, once we have that, then we move into the setting up of the pipeline and how to structure the jobs within the pipeline and do some consideration when it comes to how to structure your jobs and an experimental process where sometimes we move job around and stuff. So having this frameworks of approaching architecture decision is quite helpful. And it's transferable because you could use it into other parts of, let's say, the stack or other parts of, let's say, the front end landscape of things. And this is something I've never contributed towards. And because usually when you join companies, it's usually the case where companies have their code bases built, and you're only just coming to contribute and add on top. And all of these cool decisions are made by senior software engineers, and you're very basically involved with a specific task to be completed.
One last question, like who would you recommend this program to?
Ooh, very interesting question. I would probably say I would recommend this program to developers who are motivated to take it to the next level, and they have the time and the willingness to learn and improve their skill sets while they're willing basically to improve their skill sets, and they don't have a clear roadmap basically, or they don't know exactly how to take it to the next step. So if they would like to save themselves a lot of time, hustle, and energy, I think this program will be super beneficial to them because they will be provided with a plan or a structured plan into where do you actually stand, and have kind of like sense of reality check, right? And where to basically, and how could I take it? What are the realistic short-term plans and long-term plans? And they will basically have the opportunity to set up a plans that achieves their short and long-term goals. Yeah. So basically, if you're looking for clarity, if you're looking for, you know that you're going to invest time, you're willing to learn, you're hungry to learn, and you're willing to put time ahead and spend time and effort, but you just lack the certainty of what to do, what to invest my time on, and how to invest my time on. If this is your main issue and you want to take it to the next level and you don't have a clear roadmap, I think this program will suit you the best. And of course, if you would like to, let's say if you're a backend developer looking into moving into the front end, or if you're a front end developer looking into transition into the server side of things, this program will be super helpful as well. Yeah.